I'll follow up to that, Dan, and say out of all the consultants, brokerage firm consultants, everybody that does industrial deals in the Valley, you have to have the top market share of any consultant because I don't even know who your competitor is, honestly.
Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast. You have Bill Condon and Matt McGregor, and we have fantastic guests with us here today. First-time guest, Dan Balmelli, who is a principal engineer with Barghausen Consulting Engineers. Dan has over 40 years of experience in the engineering space. He is really one of the go-to guys in the entire market when it comes to big lands, anyone that I know when it comes to land in the market. So just a fantastic guest to have with us, a wealth of knowledge. Dan, thank you for joining us today.
Well, you're welcome.
Welcome
Good to see
the
you
show.
guys.
Absolutely. Good to see you. Thanks for joining the show today. Tell us a little bit about Barghausen, what you guys do, and specifically what you do for them.
Yeah, well, like you said, I've been here at Barghausen for 40 years, started in 1985. The company really started in 1980, and we grew from about 20 to 25 staff when I joined up to about 225 as of this last year. We recently merged with Core States, which is a firm, an AE firm, primarily back east, but now we have a lot more resources. But our firm, especially on the industrial side, focuses on, survey, planning, civil engineering design, permitting, of course, landscape design, lots of upfront feasibility work on any size site to confirm what the requirements are going to be, what the obstacles, what the constraints are, and help with determining what the overall development costs are going to be prior to starting even a project and getting too far into it. So we do a lot of that type of work.
That's awesome. And I will say, your name is definitely one of the biggest consulting names out there. Tell us a little bit about the development process, kind of some of the challenges that you're seeing now over years in the past, like just in Washington State in general.
Yeah. And, a few of the big ones are currently finding sites that don't have major constraints. We're now seeing sites that come back to us that developers looked at years ago and determined that they weren't feasible, but because of land being scarce, all pieces of land are being looked at again. And of course, part of the problem is the environmental constraints have gotten more difficult. Wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, developing on those types of properties. The environmental regulations on all of them have gotten tougher. So you not only have a tougher piece of a site, you have more regulation and tougher regulations to get anything permitted. And it just takes longer and it takes more money and it takes a lot more work and time to get these projects permitted. You also have seemingly we have more public or private entities that are either appealing or providing comments that they don't want industrial development in their area. So we're getting more of that than we used to too. So it's just more of a challenge. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just you have to expect that it's going to take more time and money to get some of these big projects entitled.
By the way, you mentioned slopes. I'm curious, was Sumner Ridge, was that a challenge with Birch on that slope? And given all of that, by the way, for the listener, that's one of my favorite sites. That's why Bill's laughing.
Matt was the brains behind that one. But, we can build on this thing.
Crazy slopes, right?
Yeah, that was and Jason Hubble from my office, senior engineer who worked with Birch on that project. And that was a very tough site. That was a site that Brian, Stowe eventually or originally owned, and we did a lot of the entitlement work. He got in a little bit of trouble, but
yes, he did.
It eventually got developed. Very tough site from a slope standpoint. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I want to back up a little bit and talk about, you guys from a market share standpoint have developed market share like I've never seen, right? You've worked on multiple projects, just anything big, Des Moines Creek, Tacoma I-5, Bridgepoint, Tacoma, BNSF site, Prologis Park, Tacoma, Pacific Logistics. I mean, just almost any big project you guys have been on. What's led to that market share and so much dominance of your firm? How have you guys done that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're fortunate and we appreciate all our clients. And we do every type of development, not just industrial, but, back 20, 30 years ago, when the industrial market really started taking off it just seemed like more industrial development was starting to occur. I became more focused on industrial development because those were my clients, and then they grew from that. And we're in the valley here, right in the Kent Valley, where the prime industrial development started. And so we did a lot of it here in the valley, and then that kind of expanded into Auburn and Sumner and even further in all directions. And our focus with this firm is really providing service, and we don't really market much. We just try to do a good job, try to service our clients, try to solve problems. And you just develop that, I guess, list of clients and developers. And we were fortunate to kind of get a name in the Pacific Northwest for doing all types of development. But I guess I was concentrating more on industrial and just gained a lot of clients. And we, I guess a little lucky too. You got to have some of that, but we've been very fortunate. So, and we try to keep a client when we get them. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have issues, but the biggest thing is you solve the problems and you work hard. And as long as you do that, you usually get your share of the work.
Well, I'll follow up to that, Dan, and say out of all the consultants, brokerage firm consultants, everybody that does industrial deals in the Valley, you have to have the top market share of any consultant, because I don't even know who your competitor is, honestly. And you don't have to mention them here. I'm just saying we don't even know, because we were talking about that before the show going, you just call Dan and team at Barghausen under all the scope of what you guys do there. I don't even know who else to call. Every other vendor, even if they're great that we have, we would have 2 or 3, right? With you guys, it's just Barghausen. That's it.
Well, appreciate that. And like I said, we feel fortunate, but there are some competitors that come and go, and there's always some out there. But we always say that we're not going to get all the work, but we just work very hard to try and do the best job we can, try to save money, try to solve problems. When there's an issue, you jump on it. We're not expected to be perfect, but as long as your clients know you are interested in helping them and you're going to solve the problems, I guess that's the main thing. And that's always been our focus and probably why we get our share of work. And we're just going to keep trying to do it because it's not getting any easier to get these projects permitted.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Let's
ahead,
stay
Bill.
on that topic because it's not getting easier for anyone. So when it comes to land entitlement, are there any policies within Washington state that we should be aware of that are either in play right now or that are coming that people should be paying really close attention to that impacts the land entitlement process?
Yeah, a few that I can think of now, guys. It seems like when the economy is good for too long and the industrial market's good for too long, cities and counties sometimes start saying, listen, we feel like we've had enough industrial development, and where they used to support it. And if they start getting feedback from the community to put pressure on stopping it or making it more difficult, that's where we start seeing some changes. Pierce County has been in the process of changing their code out in the rural area for industrial development and changing it to either make it more difficult or eliminate some of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's in process now. I think they kind of put it on hold for a bit, but a lot of the developers in the Pierce County area have been watching that closely. That's one area. As you guys know, Kent a few years ago changed their industrial standards to try and reduce the amount of pure warehouse development. And so they put restrictions on the number of warehouse dock doors per 1,000 or per 5,000 square feet. They put some additional design standards.
In Kent, that's kind of like closing the barn door after all the horses ran out, isn't it?
It's exactly, yeah. Yeah.
A little late.
And then the floodplain regulations keep getting tougher to deal with, and the wetland stream Environmental regulations keep getting tougher. The buffers get, larger. So those are some of the things we've been seeing, guys. The other is it's just taken more time. It's more complex to get these projects through the cities, whether it's staffing, they're down on staff, or they have too much of a backlog, or they're just not as interested in industrial development like they are on other types of projects right now, because a lot of entities feel like they have enough. So they just don't go out of their way to really put the effort into processing them. That's how we feel anyway.
You mentioned Pierce County and obviously the changes in Kent. And I know earlier in our careers, Auburn really kind of pushed back on industrial and changed a lot of zoning. What's a municipality or a city, I should say, that it really today would embrace it and make it easier? If there is one.
Yeah, well, there's a few. Lacey and Lakewood have been very prominent in supporting industrial development. Now, Lakewood's starting to get some pushback from their community relative to development around oak trees, but also in general, we've seen a little bit of change in their support, their overall support for industrial. It doesn't mean they won't process it, but I think their community is starting to push back a little bit, even a little bit down in Lacey also, but it's, out there where the big industrial development areas that we've done so much, it's always been supported down there. Kent will still process permits if you meet their industrial standards, and they have 2 or 3 different zonings depending on where you are that require different levels of design standards. But, we've done so much work in Kent. They've always been great to work with, but they have some new standards that have to be met now. Auburn is tougher to get development through. They have just a onerous process that it's more of a timing issue than anything. But we're doing several in Auburn right now, and we work good with them. But it just takes more time, you guys, and effort and pushing and just staying on it.
That's right.
It takes a lot of time.
And speaking of that, tell us in your career, and I'm really curious if you're going to answer this the same what Bill and I would. What is your most challenging piece of land that you worked on that ended up being an industrial development?
Yeah, industrial, yeah. As an industrial project, very interesting. The most interesting projects I've done have not been industrial projects.
Sure.
Emerald Down Racetrack was probably one of the most challenging that I worked on for over 5 years to get it done. But
that's a good one. Yeah.
It's a good one. It's not an industrial, but it's a unique project and a very important one for the area here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a couple big ones that we're working on now. One for Benaroya in the Winlock area. That's pretty challenging. A lot of infrastructure requirements, roadway improvements, fire tank storage. It didn't have any infrastructure to serve it. Okay. It's been a challenging one. It's still going on. It's a phased development. There's been some big ones in years past, but because of the fact that we didn't have as much environmental regulation, they weren't as tough to get through. But that's one of them. That's more challenging. God, there's been so many, guys. I'm just
work on
Sumner Golf Course. How about the Sumner Golf Course?
Oh yeah, the Sumner Golf Course.
That would be ours for sure.
I thought of that one. After the city dealt with the core issues on the golf course, and we came back in to develop that, it was a less of a difficult site to actually finally get developed. The big issues with that one was you're next to the river, you're in a floodplain, and so there had to be a lot of analysis done to show how you're providing mitigation for the floodplain fill, which is mostly being accomplished on the city's portion of the site to the south. But yeah, that one, from the time we started that and then got put on hold, it was a decade more of a decade of work. Another 2 tough projects, guys, right now are the Bridge Milton site that just pretty much is finishing up. Yeah. Very difficult site. Old gravel pit, lots of grade, lots of big retaining walls.
Like 80 feet or something on one of them, wasn't it?
Well, there's over 100 feet of grade difference from one end of the site to the other.
And then you had the largest retention pond ever done industrial on that site, right?
Yeah, that underground vault was a lot bigger than a football field and was a $16 million vault in itself. Wow. When that vault got started, I got people asking me, what's that new building being developed out there? And I said, well, that's a vault.
Looked like a It looked like a building.
Not a building. The other one is the other bridge project on the BNSF site. That's been a very difficult,
Poor
complicated
Justin's
site.
getting all the hard ones.
Oh, God, yeah.
He's not
Expensive.
scared, Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. He isn't.
Yeah.
He takes them on.
He does.
Lots
He
of
always
infrastructure
has
on that one,
success.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That one took a long time. And that had an environmentals to begin with as well, right?
And it got
Yeah.
appealed through SEPA. It was
Okay.
very difficult site.
We talked about challenging sites. We've talked a lot
Yeah.
about that, and they're not getting easier. Are there any sites or developments that you've gone through that have stood out to you that have just been super smooth and easy to get through that stand out? Or
Look at his gray
do you
hair.
only-
None of those
do
were
you
easy,
only
Bill.
work on really challenging sites?
Well, no, there had, some years ago, I'd say a decade ago, there was some, sites that are, the no-brainer ones that, you just happen to pick up, or one of our developers, and pretty straightforward. There's been a couple sites in DuPont and Lakewood that, when you have good gravelly soils and good infiltration, that's the most economical way to solve your stormwater problems. And so we've had a few sites down, and even Lacey, some of the smaller sites that have been flatter and more straightforward, and you get the support of the cities back when they were, those are some of the easier sites to deal with. There just isn't too many anymore that are easy because of the new regulations and site constraints, but doesn't mean they can't be developed, and they are. It's just that the regulations and the constraints have changed over the years, and it just makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, this has been really great information. I'm sure our listeners are going to love it.
For sure.
You are the expert in the space, and so appreciate you taking the time to join us today and jumping on the podcast for the first time. It won't be the last.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks,
Appreciate you,
guys.
Dan.
Appreciate it, and appreciate your support also.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wonderful. Thanks again, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks so
Okay.
much.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.